and last is any goods which are used for personal consumption. Now this is an important provision. Input tax credit तो आपको मिल जाता है, when you purchase goods you will get input tax credit, but in certain cases, I mean if you don't pay your supplier in 180 days from his invoice date, तो आपका input tax credit reverse हो जाएगा. In the 7th month you will have to pay that tax with interest. So vendor payment to vendor is a condition, within 6 months is a condition for claiming input tax. So you can take credit in the first month, but you have to ensure that within 6 months you pay your supplier, otherwise your credit in the 7th month you have to pay it with interest. And suppose 8th month में आपने पे कर दिया vendor को, you can re-avail the credit in the 8th month again. So that is not a problem, but you then lose out on the interest what you have paid. And the last is suppose goods are stolen, destroyed, that we discussed, given as free samples, there is a provision that you have to reverse the input tax credit. This is a illustration which explains how I utilize my input tax credit. So I will have 3 boxes, CGST, SGST and IGST. So what they are saying is that on your input side you will have 3 taxes, on your output side also you will have 3 taxes. So the first rule is that you should use the same tax against same tax. So CGST credit use against output CGST, input SGST against output SGST, input IGST against output IGST. Once that step is complete, okay, after that if you still have some credit balance remaining on the input side, CGST can also be set off against IGST, SGST can also be set off against IGST, and if you have IGST balance, then it can be set off against CGST as well as IGST. So that is the order of utilization. So if you notice, the only restriction is that CGST versus SGST is not available, SGST against CGST is also not available. These are the essential conditions for taking input tax credit. So these 6 conditions have to be satisfied. One is that you should receive the goods. आपको आपके warehouse में factory में goods आना चाहिए, then only you are eligible for credit. Second is they are not listed in that negative list which we discussed, rent a cab and those things. Third is you should receive the invoice also from the vendor, then only you are eligible. Fourth and fifth conditions are very important. आपका जो supplier है, if he doesn't upload his data, sales transaction on GST portal, then you will not get input tax credit. मतलब the way this will work is your vendor will have to upload, and based on his sales data, your input tax credit will be calculated by the GST portal itself. So the GST portal will give you this much input tax credit is eligible to you based on your vendor uploads. So suppose you have purchased some 100, there are 100 invoices from a particular vendor, और उसने सिर्फ 90 ही अपलोड कर दिया, 10 किया ही नहीं, तो वो 10 का जब तक वो अपलोड नहीं करेगा you will not get credit, तब तक that amount will be stuck. So till the time he doesn't upload, you can't get credit, and this will be matched online on a real time basis. Okay, so this is a very important change as compared to today. And the last condition is payment to vendor within 180 days, which we discussed. If you don't pay within 180 days, then you have to reverse your credit. This point is relating to time for payment of tax. So when do I pay the tax? So suppose I have sold something in this month, in the month of April, मैंने invoice raise कर दिया, तो मेरा due date is 20th of the next month to pay the tax. I have to file a return on a monthly basis. The return form is called as GSTR 3. So the due date is 20th of the next month. So till that time I have to pay the tax जो मैंने invoice raise किया in this month. The other point is that advance received from any customer. So suppose you receive any advance from a customer, tax is payable on advance also. So suppose आपको कुछ 10 लाख का एडवांस मिल गया आपके कोई कस्टमर से, इन द मंथ ऑफ रिसीट ऑफ एडवांस यू हैव टू पे टैक्स, एट सब्सिक्वेंटली व्हेन यू रेज द सेल इनवॉइस 2 महीने के बाद 3 महीने के बाद व्हेन यू एक्चुअली सेल हिम, at that time this tax will be adjusted against that, then you don't have to pay. So advance pay, you should pay, you will be liable to pay the tax. So one important point is that when you receive the advance you should know ये कौन से goods के against है and कौन से state के against है, मतलब कौन से state में मुझे pay करना है. So if I don't know the, suppose I am selling 100 types of products to him, some product is at 12% GST, some product is at 18 and some is at 28. और मुझे लमसम एडवांस मिला तो हाउ विल आई पे द टैक्स. सो आई शुड नो व्हेन आई रिसीव द एडवांस शुड बी लिंक टू स्पेसिफिक प्रोडक्ट्स. ये प्रोडक्ट के अगेंस्ट एडवांस मिला है सो दैट आई कैन अकॉर्डिंगली कैलकुलेट माई टैक्स एंड पे. तो ये भी एक चेंज है फ्रॉम द करंट सिस्टम. फिर एक रिवर्स चार्ज का भी प्रोविजन है. रिवर्स चार्ज मतलब क्या होता है कि normally tax is payable by the seller, but in some cases tax has to be paid by the buyer or the receiver. In two cases, so one is if you are buying from an unregistered person, suppose your supplier is not registered under GST, reverse charge tax is applicable on you, so you have to pay GST under reverse charge if you buy from an unregistered person. So this is something similar to purchase tax which is there under VAT today, but now it is called as reverse charge. So we should know कि हमारा supplier registered है नहीं है. If he is not registered, I should take a confirmation from him that he is not registered. So I will pay tax under reverse charge, and once I pay this, I can take credit of that. There is no restriction. So vendor will not charge me tax on the invoice. I will pay it under reverse charge. Similarly, there will be some goods or services which will be notified कि इस पे reverse charge लगेगा. One example could be goods transport agency, where today also under service tax there is a reverse charge where I have to pay tax. The transporter will never charge me tax. I have to pay tax, meaning if I am paying freight to the transporter, I have to pay tax under the reverse charge. Yeah, so this is that person liable to pay tax. So I have tried to capture different situations. One is sale of goods by a GST registered person. So if I am registered under GST, I am liable to pay tax, the seller. Second is stock transfer of goods by a GST registered person, meaning suppose I am stock transferring goods from state A to state B, then the person who is doing the stock transfer, मतलब जहाँ से goods जा रहा है वो state में I have to pay tax, which is IGST. Sale of goods by a person under composition scheme. So suppose there is any person जिसने composition scheme लिया है below 50 lakhs वाला case. In that case also that person has to pay the tax to the government. Sale of goods by an unregistered person. So suppose any person who is not registered under GST and if he sells goods, then the person liable to pay tax is the receiver, मतलब buyer. उसमें reverse charge applicable होगा. So ये जो last 3 cases है वहाँ पे reverse charge लगता है. First 3 cases जो है वहाँ पे seller is liable always. Similarly, services provided by an unregistered person and certain notified goods. I mean वो आएगा, list of notification for reverse charge will come. So goods transport agency mostly उसमें आएगा and there will be other services also. This is just a summary of the composition scheme, how it looks today. So composition scheme is a person जिसका aggregate turnover is less than 50 lakhs. Okay, and so eligibility ये है that he should, composition scheme जिसको करना है, he should be dealing in goods, he should not be dealing in interstate sale, local sale ही करता है और उसका turnover less than 50 lakhs है, then he can go for composition scheme. The rate, composition tax rate is 1% for traders, which is 0.5% CGST and 0.5% SGST. Person who, I mean that person, he will not.
I would like to interrupt a bit. Hello.
Yeah.
एक minute.